Hi, this is Kennedy Zimnick, an Access Tech Specialist here at the National Federation of the Blind.
Hi, this is Karl Belanger, a non-visual accessibility analyst, also at our national headquarters.
And you're listening to
White Canes Connect.
Hey there, PA Federationists. Welcome to another episode of White Canes Connect, presented by the National Federation of the Blind of Pennsylvania. My name is David Goldstein. I am the first vice president of the affiliate. Joining me today, as always, is co-host and White Canes Connect creator, Lisa Bryant. Lisa, how are you today?
I am a little frustrated, but otherwise okay. Had quite a few technical difficulties in this episode, but a wonderful conversation with Kennedy Zimnick and Karl Belanger, creators of the Accessibility Toolkit, which is now in a much more elaborated version from a few years ago when they first started working on it.
It's ironic that on the day that we talk about technology, that we had our own tech issues. And you cannot call option 5 when, as you'll hear in the interview, they give their contact information in option 5 to show how important assistive tech is for folks in the blind community. And they just had so many good ideas and how to handle companies. You don't want to fly off the handle right away. Again, like you say in the episode, you get more flies with honey than with vinegar. And that is what they echo. And they talk about everything about the accessibility toolkit and things that may happen when you're on an app or on a website that you can note and have your friends check, and maybe they've had the same issues. But there's a lot of things that you can do in getting to these companies and talking to them in a nice way and get them to maybe take some action to fix their product.
So let's listen to Kennedy and Karl give us step-by-step how-to instructions on reporting inaccessibility.
Kennedy and Karl, thanks so much for being with us today.
Of course. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's happy to be here.
So Kennedy and Karl, David and I were both right after the convention. Okay, we got to get these guys on to talk about the Accessibility Toolkit. Great that this is finally coming to pass. It is so needed. But before all of that, we wanted to get a sense of who you guys are and what you do at the Federation. So Kennedy, why don't you give us like a brief bio of yourself?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Kennedy. I'm from Maryland, born and raised in Maryland, Frederick, Maryland, Western Maryland for people who aren't familiar. I went to Towson University. It's a university in northern Baltimore. I studied some access tech stuff there under Dr. Jonathan Lazar. He's a pretty well-known person in the access tech community, so shout out Dr. Lazar. He's pretty much the one that got me into this, so I owe him a lot. And I came to the Federation in 2018, and I've been here ever since. So I've been here for about 6 years. I'm an access tech specialist. I have my hand in a ton of different things, hardware, software, meeting members, talking to members, helping people, coming on podcasts like this. So it's great to be here and great to meet you all.
Karl, tell us a little bit about you.
Sure. I'm Karl. I grew up in New Hampshire, moved to Maryland for the NFB, but I've been blind since birth, so got into access technology and computers and all that fun stuff at quite a young age, and it's always been a passion of mine. So getting to do this is really something special. I've been here just about 10 years, started in September 2014, and as Kennedy said, I love doing all the stuff we do with that access technology, from working with companies, working with members, trying out new technology, reviewing technology, anything and everything. It's a lot of fun.
And it's good that you guys both enjoy this because it is quite a complicated environment, especially when we're talking about the inaccessibility of various apps and websites. What's the backstory on creating the Accessibility Toolkit?
As a team here at the NFB, we get a lot of requests for looking at different websites and different technologies that people are having issues with. But we're a small team. We have limited resources. We can't do everything. Plus, companies would rather hear from their customers, their users, rather than a big organization like ours. So that's where empowering the users to be able to advocate for themselves and to engage with companies in a meaningful way on accessibility is really powerful. So my first effort at this was a Braille Monitor article from November 2018 on effectively reporting accessibility issues to developers. And that kind of followed the same general flow of what the toolkit now does, as in article form, walking people through gathering information, reporting an issue in a way that's useful to developers and not just this thing's not reading, but actually some, specific detail, finding connections at companies, all that other stuff, and just really going through the whole process of engaging with companies. So that was out there for a while. I did a couple presentations essentially walking through that process in 2020 and 2023. And then also in 2023, we decided that it's been a few years, it might be time to revamp this and put it in a more stable form than just a magazine article, and have it on our website. And through some internal discussions and processes, the toolkit came to be what it is now.
I like your point about empowering individuals, and as opposed to companies always hearing from a big organization, although there's power in a name like, the National Federation of the Blind. So what's the best way that any person, any regular user of an accessible app or website, how do they effectively use the toolkit?
The toolkit and the webinar could really be gone through in either order. The toolkit is a written, page by page, multiple different pieces on the site for a way for people to go through and follow the steps. The webinar then goes into more detail. I do some specific demos with screen readers, going through a web page talking about how certain issues could be described. Once those two are done, there's the sample letter where people, if they choose, can download it, change it to suit whatever site or app or whatever product they're using, and send it off. And then the last piece, which is related to this, is we want to know what sites and things people are having trouble with, because while we don't necessarily have the ability to chase down every lead and talk to every small business about every accessibility issue, we do want to know what pain points people are having with products and websites. And what we hope to gain from this inaccessibility tracker form is that when we start getting complaints from users on specific topics, it can help kind of inform and direct, okay, maybe we do need to engage more broadly with a certain company or certain tools that may have a lot of users who are experiencing issues with that product.
With the toolkit, is this obviously easy accessibility? How do you get so you find a website, an app, or you find something that you need to write to, and you take that sample letter, you make it all nice for that specific. How do you get the information? Is it better to send an email? Do you find an email address to send it to? Do you is it better to send just a letter in the mail? What works best, and how do you get the information?
That can vary company to company. Generally, the ultimate best solution is if the company has an accessibility contact, be it a web form, be it a accessibility email address, or something of that sort. That is always going to be your best bet. But a lot of companies don't have those. Next, I would say look for if there's a specific section for feedback about the website, or a webmaster email address or something like that. Go for that. And then a lot of times it's just the general support info or just the generic contact us form that you send the letter to. And then failing that, you can even do this over social media. A lot of companies do it now, will engage with users who have issues through a certain social media account. And so engaging through things like that can also be powerful.
Social media is, very powerful. LinkedIn is, people are very updated on LinkedIn. I found a ton of accessibility reps that work on accessibility teams through their LinkedIn profile. So that's another suggestion. Just using LinkedIn, just using straight up Google and Googling a company and then accessibility team. If they have an accessibility statement on their website, sometimes you'll find a contact there. Just asking around, getting creative, doing some investigative work. That's how we do it. And, that's how we recommend other people do it too.
So to those people who, when you say social media, I have a friend who, based where he is and again, the tone of the folks of this city, maybe it's not as friendly and, hey, everything's nice about it, but it's more of a, I can't believe they put something, something like this out, not as recommended as doing something a little more formal, maybe waiting to get a response or two that's just as frustrating as the issue that they're having with their app or their site to kind of dig in.
Yeah, I think it always is best to start with like a fairly polite, professional, hey, I'd like to engage with you on this. And there definitely are some kind of do's and don'ts of how to engage with these companies. And whether it's via email, via social media, keeping that as frustrated as you may feel at, trying to unsuccessfully do whatever it is you're trying to do for the last hour, taking that out on the company generally isn't the best policy.
Yeah, it's just kind of, this common sense, like the old adage, you catch more flies with honey than vinegar or bees with honey than vinegar or something like that. The tracker form. People will use this so that you can have sort of a collection, for lack of a better word, and to see if there are any sort of common companies that are coming up over and over. But before that, like, what should people be doing? Or is there something you want people to do before using the tracking form? Like, are there some ideally steps that they should take ahead of that?
I mean, I think they can let us know, ideally, yes, if you've gone through the toolkit, reached out, whether or not it's been resolved, I think definitely starting with the toolkit, but we would encourage people to fill out the tracker form at whatever stage they feel is appropriate. I mean, we love success stories. If you can fill out the form and say, hey, I had this inaccessibility with company X. I reached out, engaged, they fixed it, all is well. That's amazing. Right. But if it's, hey, I've gone through this and here's the accessibility issues, I'm not comfortable reaching out, but I just want to fill out the form to let NFB know that this is a problem, that's okay too.
Did you guys, I guess we should know, this is open to anyone who's blind or low vision and they're having problems with a site or app. This is not simply for members of the Federation first. That's correct, right?
That is definitely correct. Yes, this is for anyone, or even, it could even be someone who's working with a blind or low vision person who wants to get involved and advocate.
And to that end, did you collaborate with any other organizations, whether or not it was getting input on how should this toolkit even look?
This was mostly internal. We do work with the Maryland State Department of Disabilities on various things. We do have a grant that they provide that helps us do some of our work, including some of the presentations, like we mentioned. And they did get to look at the toolkit, but it was mostly internal.
And so you said this started in 2018, I think you said? Yeah. So what sort of things have you found so far? What kind of data have you collected? What has been the response? What's been the engagement with people using the toolkit?
I think the toolkit and just overall, whether from the article or from the current toolkit, I think people have generally been very receptive to the reaching out. One of the biggest concerns is that we hear from people is that I don't know the technology or the technical term to describe what's going on when I'm having a problem on my, on this website. I don't know what code is broken or how to describe it well. And one of the things we talk about in the toolkit is you don't need to know that the input for thing is missing its label or the ARIA labeled by attribute is not applied to this form field. that is totally, sure, if you're a web accessibility expert and want to dive into the code and figure that out, companies will love that. But telling a company, when I tab through your form, all my screen reader reads is edit, 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 and it doesn't tell me what each field is for, is going to be plenty useful for them to go look at it. Or when I go through the pictures on your site, all I'm hearing are gibberish file names. Explanations or descriptions like that still give the company enough to go by of, okay, there are problems with the alt text. The screen reader is not reading them properly. And then they can go through and look and see which ones are there. And, the user doesn't have to be the one going through and giving the very technical, proper code terminology explanation for it.
What have you found to be the biggest issues? Is there a couple of items that are going over all the different sites and apps that you have problems with? What is the top couple that, and I'm guessing you said alt text with the images. I'm guessing that might be near the top, but what have you found?
Yeah, generally it's alt text, form labels, heading structure, things like that.
Yeah, a lot of issues that companies or businesses are just ignorant to accessibility a lot of the time. So things are just missing. Those are kind of, a lot of the issues that we've been finding. And also another trend is there really isn't a trend. There's a lot of different types of software and websites and physical pieces of hardware too that people have reported. So the trend is there isn't really a huge trend. Of course, we see the popular, Mac, Windows, iOS, Android devices, but that's really where the similarities end a lot of the time.
Yeah, and I would like to just, Kenny, something you said there about, they're just ignorant of accessibility. A lot of times, and from talking to a lot of people, sometimes it can feel like these companies actively don't want to support the blind community or actively don't want to make their stuff accessible. From my experience, that has rarely, if ever, been the case. In the vast majority of time, we talk to companies who don't have accessible products. It's because they don't know any better. It's unfortunate, but we still, from time to time, get variations on the theme of, wait, blind people use computers, which is getting less and less, fortunately, but still not unheard of. So
I think it's better that it would be that way, though, than a friend of mine works for a company that said, oh, I don't think any blind people will come here. We don't need to do that.
Yeah, fortunately, that has generally been definitely in the minority from what we've found. But yeah, just most companies and don't know. And I've found more often than not, companies, once they do know, if you're, as long as they're approached in a collaborative, non-confrontational way, are generally open to things. It may take time. You may not get instant gratification, but it is definitely, a lot of companies just want to make their product available to more users.
I've heard of a lot of stories of companies being very appreciative, like Karl says, that people have come and kind of provided free labor, free quality assurance testing for them. So yeah, our advice is don't be afraid to reach out. Like Karl said before, try and be polite, just like with anything, with anybody, just being polite and trying to be nice and supportive, and we want to work together versus, some people want to go the litigation route right away and mention lawsuits, which we definitely don't recommend, right off the bat. That's definitely the last resort. And, it's part of the toolkit to some pitfalls that you want to stay away from, and kind of how you want to talk to these companies. That's a lot of what the toolkit is. So just being friendly goes a long way.
So in the toolkit, you go over these things, and have you found that there has, in any specific time, whether it's over the course of a short amount of time, you get all sorts of feedback about a specific company or app, or is it just something that comes and goes? As I know, I was talking to a friend earlier today, and she was mentioning, I love it when I know where everything is on an app, and then they change it a little bit, and I either can't find it or accessibility is broken. And that seems to be, it's almost like a crapshoot when somebody upgrades their app or redoes their website that happens. Have you found that there has been one company that has done a great job in fixing quickly, or there's been one that you get a ton of complaints on?
It really is all over the place. Sometimes we've had companies that do really well, and then one day this an update is released that messes everything up. This isn't specifically related to the toolkit because we got this through other channels, but there was a whole thing back around the May-June timeframe. There's an audio company called Sonos, that good example of this. They released updated version of their app, which you can use to control a lot of speakers and things, that had major regressions in both inaccessibility, but also just for the general public, which a lot of people weren't happy with. But for years, Sonos had been kind of the high point for audio system, accessibility for audio systems and things like that. So it can really happen to anyone.
One thing that has helped, at least for me, I think, is AI, whether it's Be My Eyes, and I know you guys have run different, I think you called them boutique.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember the term.
Boutiques.
Yeah.
Accessibility boutiques. Yeah.
Accessibility boutiques. Yeah. The PDF has been the bane of most of our existence because they are just not, you just can't read them for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
But I will never forget when I was so mad. Someone sent us a letter in a PDF form, and it turned out it was a very, very nice letter, and I was glad I was able to read it, but I couldn't read it until I took it into Be My Eyes and said, I asked it what it was, and it told me what it was, but it didn't. I had to then ask, please read this word for word, and it did. And all of a sudden, it was like the skies opened up and the sun was shining, and it was just incredible. Has that been a big deal for everyone, do you think?
I think it's getting there. I think right now, because you still need to prompt it in a lot of cases, and you need to prompt it in the right way a lot of the time to get things, it's still somewhat in a niche spot. But I think as it develops and as things progress, I think AI could be very powerful.
Yeah, definitely. I know companies like Adobe and Google are trying to get better with OCR and PDFs specifically, and making PDF accessibility and tagging PDFs much easier for people, and making the auto tag a lot better than it is right now using AI. So yeah, AI is definitely a very exciting thing in general, but for accessibility, very exciting too. We could talk hours about AI, and I'm sure you guys have.
And it just seems to have happened in a short amount of time. From when it first started, I remember, and I use AI fairly frequently for whether it's show notes or whatever it might be, and just the ability to, back in the beginning, I would take a transcript of an episode, and if it was a half an hour or longer, it would have trouble giving me anything past the half hour mark of what went on in the transcript. But now it's, everything is available. It's just unreal. So it is something that's good. What do you guys see moving forward besides AI? And maybe there isn't anything besides AI. Do you think there's more awareness now about accessibility, or do you think companies are more aware now, or how do you think that's all playing out?
I think they're becoming more aware. And I think with all these advances in AI, one of my biggest concerns is that I don't want developers to lose sight of that there is still, AI is not a magic bullet. AI is not going to fix all your accessibility issues. And there is still very much, and I suspect for the immediate future, there will still be very much a need for code knowledgeable developers to implement things correctly for accessibility, knowledgeable testers who can test things for accessibility. Because while AI is getting better, it is nowhere near the ability to properly, remediate accessibility or be like a one size fits all approach.
I would agree. In general, I think companies are more aware. We're seeing products that are coming with accessibility built in a lot of these consumer products already, which is great. Smartphones are incredibly accessible devices. Like Android has come such a far way in the past 5 years in accessibility, and everybody really has. iOS 18 has a ton of accessibility features. So I definitely think people are more aware of it, and I think they're also more aware of how things built for blind or low vision users or anybody with a disability is useful for everybody. Universal usability is a very popular term, and things like captions were originally made for deaf and hard of hearing, and now everybody uses captions on everything. Curb cuts are a classic example, things like that. I think companies are more aware, and it's exciting because it seems like they're including things that just for the general public that are also accessible. So I think that's very exciting.
I wanted to ask if there has been anything else sort of comparable over the years that you have found. Have any other organizations tried to take up this task of keeping a record of the repeat offenders, as I said earlier, or as you guys called it, empowering people to complain or to notify the companies of their inaccessibility? Has this been done before?
Not to my knowledge. I mean, the NFB has other targeted toolkits. We have a higher education one and things like that. So we do have some other toolkits focused around advocacy, but especially in this area, and that was partly why I started this initiative to begin with, is that there really wasn't a lot out there on just taking it simple, straightforward, step by step, how users can just tell companies in an actionable way what issues they're having and work with them to fix them.
Yeah. So how are you getting the word out about this?
Generally, it's just so far been through our regular channels, NFB mailing lists. It was mentioned on the presidential release and at our convention, various channels like that.
What about to other organizations, though? Because sometimes we can be in our own little NFB bubble, and there's so many others out there who are not even affiliated with an organization that would love to know about this. There's some people that are really, and I'm thinking of someone I know, but she's not active in terms of like a convention goer, but she spends a lot of time on different websites. And I could see someone like her wanting to know about this, but she may not necessarily be plugged into those various mailing lists that are just within our world. So how are you reaching those outsiders?
That is one area we're definitely still working on and progressing with, is because yes, this needs to be seen by as many people as possible, and again, we very much appreciate you inviting us to be on this podcast, as it is,
one way, right?
One way, yeah.
That
it can get out to more people, and we certainly mention it at a lot of our presentations and things where it's appropriate. And
we also work with MDOD, of course, so they have a large connection. MSDE, Maryland State Department of Education, as well. We have a connection with them. So in Maryland, I think it is, but nationally, it would be nice to get the word out a little bit more.
So how can we, in the Federation or any listener out there, how can we support the work you're doing?
I'd say the biggest way is, the products you want to use, the companies you want to be a part of, engage with them, reach out, use this toolkit to advocate. We as the NFB headquarters can only do so much. We only have so much resources, but by advocating, yourself and getting, I want to get back more to this in a sec, but, getting those around you who are also users to advocate. And then let us know if there are companies that you have worked with that are not receptive, are disregarding requests. We'd like to know through that tracker form. And if there are success stories, if you engaged with a company and they made changes and now the product's amazing, let us know that too, because we want to highlight those companies as well.
Just to echo, what Karl said, getting the word out, especially in the blind community, we know people love to talk and recommend things, use social media. So if anybody finds the toolkit specifically helpful, please tell other people. And yeah, like Karl said, the best way to get what you want is to advocate for it. And, I know we've said that word a million times, but it really is an important word, and we're really all about self-advocacy at the NFB and think it's super important. And we hope that, all your listeners think it's important too.
And I hope I'm not opening a can of worms. I was just kind of wondering, because you mentioned how it's just the two of you. You're not able to answer all of those submission forms of the track. Would it be helpful if more people volunteer to, say, even just read those forms as they are submitted?
We're always open to possibilities. We don't have any sort of mechanism like that in place currently, but we're potentially open to ideas, having discussions with different groups or whatever as this continues to grow. But I think the biggest thing for right now is just getting more engagement, getting companies to, work with their users, and just getting people to getting the advocacy to happen, I think, is the most important piece right now.
Well, I think it's a great start. Well, it's beyond a start. I mean, you actually have a real thing. It's very usable. I was looking through the webinar. It's very helpful. The sample letter, all of it is very well done, very user-friendly. And you guys are available if people run into any questions or issues. You're available via email, phone call. What is the best way that people should contact you?
We have a technology line that people can reach out to if they have questions on this or any other accessibility-related topic. We're happy to talk to individuals about anything access technology related, and you can reach that through access@nfb.org or calling the main NFB phone number 410-659-9314, option 5. And that will get you to a line where we may answer, or you can leave a voicemail and we'll respond to discuss with us whatever issues you may have.
And you can always ask for Karl or myself if you just want to call and ask for us.
Everybody, when they give the main number there at National, they always then give a 4-digit code. Here's my extension 1234. But this is obviously important enough that you only have to remember number 5. Mm-hmm. You don't have to remember anything else, just number 5.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it's obviously an important item to think about and to talk about. And the fact that you guys are there, I didn't honestly know that there was something like that.
And just to clarify, we are not technical support. If you're having a JAWS issue, we'd like you to contact Freedom Scientific. If you're having if you're having a voiceover issue, please contact Apple Accessibility. But what we are here for is, if you're like, I need a Braille display. There's a bunch of them on the market and I don't know where to start. I need a magnifier. What do you think of the latest, AI products? How do I advocate with my job for a piece of technology that I need? What technology is out there that might even help me in this situation? Those type of questions are what this line is really for, and we're happy to help with anything related to that.
So while we're talking about that, I'm assuming both you guys are on JAWS?
I use JAWS and NVDA.
Okay.
Personally, I'm primarily NVDA, but I do use both.
And I'm sighted myself, but when I do use a screen reader, I'm NVDA.
Okay. And both iPhones or either?
I'm Android.
Android.
I'm iPhone, so we have a pretty wide
That's great.
range of
Right.
Yeah.
I love what you said, Karl, about being able to contact you guys for those recommendations. You were like in my head because I have been thinking about a magnifier, for example, and I do have an app that so far the company has been fairly responsive on fixing one of the issues, but the other issue has not yet been fixed. And I think I'm just going to test out the steps that you suggest with the toolkit, and I'll be back.
Great.
Yeah,
please do.
And one final point I wanted to make, I alluded to earlier, is companies, want to hear from their users, but they also have to prioritize, just as we have to prioritize with what companies we engage with and what issues we tackle. Companies have to prioritize too. So if you're part of a community or you have friends who use the same app and are encountering the same issue, or even just social media followers, if you have a group on Facebook or X or whatever, and that is having a similar frustration, work together, file reports for each of you, because the more reports a company gets, the higher on the priority list it will be. Though I will caution, just as we discussed earlier, about needing to frame things appropriately so it doesn't come off as hostile or aggressive. This becomes even more important if you're collectively advocating, because one person prematurely threatening to sue could get the entire group's emails just shuffled off to the legal department, and then you get nowhere.
It is a case of the squeaky wheel gets the oil. The more people that make that complaint, maybe this is a problem we need to address.
But, and to be clear, that's not to say one person reporting a problem can't get it addressed. They certainly can.
Yeah.
But, it may be higher on the company's priority list if they have 10, 20 or more people reporting an issue.
Kennedy, at the beginning, you had mentioned going to Towson. And the program that you took, was that assistive tech part of a program, or was that the main part of the program? Was that the program? So
it was information systems, and it was a track that had accessibility related to it. So yes, unfortunately, I wish there was an accessibility major. That would be, very cool. One of the big pieces that we're trying to do here is we have an inclusion fellowship program. That's when we work with professors from around Maryland in higher education to incorporate accessibility into their courses. And it could be any course. So we have, biology, math, psychology, English, pretty much anything. And we're just trying to get them to just teach the students about accessibility. And the thing is, some people think that it just has to be web design or STEM or math to have accessibility. But, everything can have accessibility, any document, any digital anything. So we're really trying to ring the bell of accessibility and teaching that at the college level, so that no matter what field they get into, they can include accessibility into what they do.
We'd love for you to give any other final comments or encouragement or words you want to share with anyone, and then repeat that contact information and how people should best use that contact information.
Thank you guys for having us. We really encourage people to reach out and try and talk to us. Give us a call. We're always available. We're open 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. Just leave a message. If we don't get back to you, we get a lot of messages and emails. so it might take a little bit. But we love, meeting people and helping people out. And a lot of the time, especially if you're newly blind or if you're working, if you have a grandma or grandpa that's losing vision, somebody else that's losing vision, it may seem, really scary and impossible to do a lot of the things. And I'm sure you talk about it on this podcast a lot. Technology is really amazing these days, and there are a ton of solutions out there for a lot of things that you might not think are possible. So I definitely recommend to just keep trying and don't give up and really use the resources out there. And again, my contact information, my personal email, I'll put that out there for anybody. You can have it. It's kzimnik@nfb.org. KZIMNIK@nfb.org. If you want to email me, I'm happy to give that out. And then, yes, of the 410-659-9314 is the general number, and then option 5 is the Access Tech line.
Thank you again for having us. I've really enjoyed the conversation and would encourage everyone to, as you come across accessibility issues in your day-to-day life, please do engage with the companies. Many are very receptive to hearing about these issues and want to make their product usable by as many people as possible. As Kennedy said, if you want to reach out for any questions related to access technology or devices, software, anything like that, please do reach out. Again, access@nfb.org, or my email, kbelanger, KBELANGER, @nfb.org. And we're happy to engage with you on any topic, though I would ask, if it is strictly a tech support related question, to please reach out to the relevant device manufacturer or developer first. But otherwise, advocacy is important. Companies want to hear from you. If you want to give that company money, generally they want to make sure that you're having a good experience with their products. So please, advocate, engage with companies, and then use our Inaccessibility Tracker form to let us know what issues you're having. And if you do engage with a company, let us know how it went, good or bad.
And we should mention how to get to the form, probably. If you go to nfb.org/CENA/CENA, you'll find it there.
I should say CENA is Center of Excellence in Non-Visual Accessibility.
Okay.
Is that what that stands for?
Yep.
That was my next question.
Well, Karl and Kennedy, you guys are a great team. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for bearing with us and your patience with some technical problems that we were having on our end. But good thing this show is hosted by 2 people, because you would have had a conversation with yourselves. So thank you for your patience.
We know how demo stuff goes. I mean, there's nothing worse than having a device blue screen in the middle of a live demo, which has happened to me before. So, yeah.
But this was great. Thank you both for what you're doing.
Certainly.
Of course.
Thanks again to Kennedy and Karl for coming on and talking about the Accessibility Toolkit. It is a very, very useful thing, Lisa.
It is, and I really admire their commitment to this project and bringing it to the current stage. They're a great resource for just running by, hey, what do you think of this device? Is it the most accessible? And maybe they have a recommendation. I am certainly going to use them as a resource for that. And I heard them loud and clear. They are not your tech support, but they certainly can be your recommenders of accessible devices. And I really want people to know that this is for blind, low vision users. It is not necessarily, it's not at all restricted to Federation members. So people should know that they should feel very comfortable contacting Kennedy and Karl, regardless of any or no affiliation with NFB.
Just like NFB Newsline is for any blind or low vision user, this toolkit is available for you. It doesn't matter where you are. Maybe you're overseas. I know we do have some overseas listeners. This may work in your country too. If your home language is in English, maybe the letter is not going to be as useful, but the steps that you can take to contact these companies and developers will be useful and would give you a good head start.
If you have any suggestions, any feedback, please contact us. We'd love to hear from you. You can email us at whitecanesconnect@gmail.com.
I would love to hear from folks to hear what devices they may use above and beyond their iPhone and JAWS and VoiceOver and whatnot. What devices do you use assistive technology wise? Give us a call, 267-338-4495. You've got up to 3 minutes. We'd love to hear your name and your town, and then your device. Or if you've got a question or a comment or a show idea, please reach out and tell us. Again, 267-338-4495.
Thanks, David, for bearing with my technical difficulties. And to all of you out there, thanks for hanging in there with us.
Thanks for listening. Take care.